my mind is kind of foggy. Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kayla and I like to talk about books, and sometimes I do other stuff, but mostly I just review books. And today I want to talk about the book This Time Tomorrow by Emma Straub. So, This Time Tomorrow by Emma Straub is the latest release from the author, and I haven't read everything by her, but I have also read her book All Adults Here, and I actually did enjoy it. I think I actually enjoyed this, though, a lot more, and I'll obviously get into that a little bit more in the review section. I will start with a synopsis, and it's going to be spoiler free because this is still a very new release. I think it's only been out for like a week or 2 weeks maybe, and so I'm guessing a lot of people have not read it yet, so this will be spoiler free, but I'll kind of give a synopsis of just the setup of the story and everything like that. Just kind of spoiler alert or heads up, sorry, I feel not the best and my voice sounds really bad because I got COVID. So I actually read this while I was on a trip to Seattle and came back and tested positive and got incredibly sick because I'm immunocompromised. So this review is supposed to be up like a week plus earlier than it's probably gonna get up, but you know, we do what we can. I'll see if I can find a couple of clips to insert and I'll do that here. It's just a great city. I still had a great time even though I came home and got really sick. We all had a really good time. Let's just get into This Time Tomorrow by Emma Straub. This book follows our protagonist Alice, a New York woman who is about to turn 40. Unlike a lot of her peers, she is still unmarried with only one prospect about which she is entirely indifferent, and she has no children. Her job is not exactly what she expected either, and she sort of finds herself wondering what it is she really wants to do and what would really make her happy. She does have a great friendship with her longtime best friend and enjoys her independence, but just remains a little bit unsure of whether or not she's on the right path. One thing she's definitely really unsatisfied with is that her father is sick in the hospital, likely without much time left. He has been unconscious for some time, and she kind of finds herself wishing and considering how she could have strengthened their relationship a little bit better and whether he's been happy with his life. You know, he's divorced from her mom, and just kind of she wonders how things could have turned out better for him, and I guess for her as well, and for the two of them together. On the evening of her 40th birthday, she ends up at a bar that she frequented a lot in her youth and actually has a few too many, and goes back to her father's house, which is also her childhood home, and passes out. And when she wakes up the next morning, she actually wakes up back in time. She wakes up on the morning of her 16th birthday and is kind of shocked, obviously, to be given another chance with her dad when he was younger and healthier, and to possibly have the opportunity to, you know, work on some of the things that she is so insecure about with their relationship in the future. And part of what she wants is to hopefully like make it so that he's not sick in the future, but I think really just the opportunity to be able to bond with her dad is obviously an incredible thing to have over again. This is really where things start to pick up, obviously. This is all actually pretty early on in the book that this happens, but this is where everything starts to pick up, so I'm not going to give away any of the good stuff, anything that happens after that, so I'm just going to leave the synopsis here. So let's just get right into my review and some of my thoughts. First off, right away, I guess I just want to say, for me, you know when you read a book that is just like the right book at exactly the right time in your life, that it just resonates with you in a really deep way? This was a book like that for me. There have been a handful of those in my life that have just been, you know, books that come along at exactly the right time, and whether or not it's like even a book you'll read again, it just hits you at exactly the right time where that's like what you needed to read. I feel like everybody can kind of relate to this on some level, and if you can't, I'm really sorry because it's the best feeling. But yeah, the similarities that I felt with the character Alice, and just the helplessness with watching her dad progress and in his illness and kind of not knowing really what to do or how to handle it, that felt very relatable. And my own dad is currently sick, so it just really felt, it hit home a little bit too much, honestly. So this made it like an especially tender and kind of emotionally connecting read for me. And while that is obviously specific to me, it's still something that definitely affected my experience of the book, so I want to just talk about it and get it out right away. If I were not at this stage in my life and having this experience, I would imagine this book definitely, it still would have been a good book for me, but it wouldn't maybe have connected with me so deeply and on such like an emotional level. It really felt like I was invested in the characters and how the story turned out, and it just was the right read at the right time, and it felt actually really cathartic for me to read, and it made me think a lot about my own dad and feel a lot better about that, to be honest. So it was just amazing, and I was actually really happy that I picked this up. So I'll kind of talk a little bit about the characters. Really, Alice is the main character. She's an interesting enough character. Early on in the book, you think she's interesting enough, but I think that she really comes through towards the end of the story when she definitely figures out more about what she does and doesn't want and how that might not fit into the mold of what a lot of her friends have. I also enjoy, just in general, seeing a female protagonist of this demographic, this age, that isn't married and doesn't have children. It is incredibly refreshing to see a character this age that still feels unsure and less settled, because honestly there is just a lot of truth to feeling unsure at all phases of life, regardless of one's choices, regardless of whether you're married with children. You can be like on the outside very settled and still sometimes feel unsure. It's really refreshing to see a character, especially a female character, depicted at this age in that phase. I just really enjoyed seeing a female protagonist of this age, this demographic, that did not like have it all figured out, because that's just not accurate to life. Like, you can be at a lot of phases of life and still be unsure or have doubts or go through a big change or a big development. It could very much be said, by the way, that I think like in this book, New York felt like a character itself in a book that was honestly clearly written by somebody who absolutely loves the city. It's woven throughout the story with care and just sprinkled in every page of the book. It really is. And it was also like a really central component of the relationship between Alice and her father, and I really enjoyed seeing that. A lot of what they bonded over was food, activities, and just like the energy of the city, because they're just like true New Yorkers. And so I loved kind of reading that on the page. It did make it feel come alive. It felt very much like it was written obviously from the perspective of somebody who loves it, and that's just great. I really enjoyed that. The other characters, since it is obviously Alice's point of view and it's really about her story, the other characters are great, but they're not like the most fleshed out, other than probably her dad. And so I really liked her dad's character, and I also thought that having him be a sci-fi author, someone who wrote a sci-fi book, really helped to weave in a little bit of like time travel exposition like pretty seamlessly, and I really enjoyed that. I really liked his character. He seemed like such a great and caring dad. Without giving too much away, I like that they show that he has different sides to himself, like when he goes to the convention and everything. And just, yeah, I think he could have fallen a little bit flat, but I'm glad that there was a little bit of dimension and depth given to him. So kind of going into the time travel was something that I also enjoyed, partially because it wasn't over-explained. Now, this is possibly a point of contention for people, but this is not like a sci-fi book to me. This is more of, it reads to me a little bit more like magical realism. This is just a vessel for a really character-driven story. So I appreciate that it was not over-explained. But like I said, the way that Alice's father was a sci-fi writer who authored like a pretty well-known time travel book made explanations that did happen occur pretty seamlessly, and it felt natural, it felt nonchalant, it didn't feel like it was being shoehorned in, which I really appreciated. Instead of feeling like sci-fi, though, it really did feel, to me at least, more like magical realism, which I enjoy a lot. That's actually a genre that I've really been gravitating towards over the last year or two. Again, just, yeah, not over-explaining the time travel, but still allowing it. It did have guidelines, it did have rules, but not over-explaining it, and just allowing it to be a vessel for the story and the characters to move. That was something that I really, really enjoyed. Somebody was telling me that the premise of this, the concept of this, kind of reminded them of The Midnight Library by Matt Haig, and I very much agree. I mean, it's a different book. It ends up being quite a different book, but I do think that there's a lot of the same flavor there. I do think that there's a lot of, and again, it kind of, The Midnight Library to me also had a little bit of that magical realism. I don't know, I really enjoyed both of those books, so I would kind of agree with that statement, and I would take it a step further and say, if you have read and enjoyed The Midnight Library by Matt Haig, I would imagine you would probably enjoy this book as well. So I'm kind of gonna just, I don't know if it's go out on a limb, but I'm gonna say, if you enjoyed that, I definitely recommend you read this. I think you'd like it too. Maybe a little less, maybe a little more, but it's totally in that same vein and has a very similar storyline and just a similar kind of flavor, if that makes sense. This one also has the added element, though, of being also very New York centric. So if you're like a fan of the city, then yeah, it's a slam dunk for you. There's not a lot more that I want to touch on. Maybe one more complaint I could have is that her best friend Sam felt a little bit underdeveloped as a character. Obviously, she was just there to be like a supporting character, but I don't know, I would have liked to see maybe a little bit more from her. Nothing crazy to take away from Alice, but you know, just a little bit more from that supporting character would have been kind of nice, because I actually thought she was like a really fun character and it seemed like a really nice and supportive friend. I don't know, there's not a lot more to touch on. Definitely liked it. For me, it was actually like, I think it was a 5-star book, but I think that's just also because it resonated with like where I'm at in my life and all these different things. So definitely would recommend it, and like I said, would really recommend it to people who read and enjoyed The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. Also, if you liked other Emma Straub, I think she writes really interesting characters. I haven't read all of her books, but like I said, I did read All Adults here, and I really enjoyed the daughter in the family of that story as well. She decides to like get pregnant by herself. She's like in her 30s and single, and I think she is writing some interesting, not old, but like older, like adult female characters. So I kind of am gonna, I think, tap into some more stuff by her as well. But that's gonna be basically it for this review, this video. Let me know below if you're interested in reading this, if you have read it. Trying to keep it spoiler free for folks who haven't. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, please subscribe. I'm actually really trying to get to 800 subscribers by the end of the year. So if you're interested at all, please subscribe. And yeah, that's gonna be it for this video. Bye.